The LA Clippers finished off their 6-game Grammy road trip in Brooklyn on Monday night. And again, they made life tough for themselves. It was very similar to the Knicks game, a game of runs. Clippers led at times. Clippers trailed at times. It looked like they had blown it, but just like in Madison Square Garden, they came back, rallied at the end, and got a win. What did we learn about the Clippers? The good and bad? Plenty to take on today's Locked On Clippers.
You on Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, in my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where I just went live after the Clippers Nets game. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You can make daily fantasy projections on Prize Picks, you versus the Prize Picks projection, not against any particular person. It's really fun. You can do the more or less on points, rebounds, assists, whatever you want. That's on Prize Picks. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. But we're going to be talking more about Prize Picks as the episode goes on. And remember, subscribe to Locked On Clippers on YouTube. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms, but also visually on YouTube. And comment on today's pin question, and that is, do you think that Ty Lue is going to persist with the three-guard lineup because he reintroduced it in this game, or do you think he was just testing something out? Let me know what you think. But in today's episode, going to be talking about the good and bad, because there was good and bad from this win. The Clippers ending their road trip, 6 games, East Coast, with a 4-2 record, 4-1 in games that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George played. Should have probably been 5-1, given that they had a 21-point lead against the Milwaukee Bucks. But 4-2 we will take. We will take all day long as Clipper fans. So going to be talking about what went well, what we learned from the team in a good way, and why it ended up being so hard without Kyrie Irving, without Ben Simmons, without Kevin Durant. And then going to close out by talking about certain situations with the Clipper role players coming off the bench. But let's start it out. So going into this game, you knew the guy to watch for Brooklyn was going to be Cam Thomas. Second-year player, scorer extraordinaire, scored 44 points in his last game against the Washington Wizards. And he picked up right where he left off in this one. And he saw about every single Clipper defender in this game. Terrence Mann started out on him. Kawhi guarded him. And remember, Clippers are going to switch 1 through 4. Zubac is going to be in drop coverage. And after the first 3 that Cam Thomas made when Zoo was dropped too deep, Zoo was up on every screen after that, hedging or just dropping, but not dropping too deep where Cam Thomas is walking into open threes. So big adjustment there from Zoo right away. Well done. Everyone else is going to switch, and I'm not going to lie. Cam Thomas was showing the array of everything. If there's anything we found out in this game, it's that Cam Thomas is an exceptional young offensive player, and Nick Claxton is one of the best defensive players in the NBA. Cam Thomas was hitting every sort of shot you could imagine. Threes, pull-up threes, mid-ranges, finishes around the basket, blowing by guys, contested threes over 7-foot Ivica Zubac. I mean, he was just out of his mind good in this game. 47 points. So as far as the Clippers, you've allowed 50-plus points to Giannis, and then 41 to Jalen Brunson, now 47 to Cam Thomas. That's a little concerning in my opinion. Now, the reason why I mentioned Nick Claxton is because you could immediately tell his presence on defense as a Clipper fan. The Nets were not switching 1 through 4. They were switching 1 through 5. And that's because Nick Claxton is so good moving his feet and has great length and just really has the ability to stick with just about everybody on the court. So I thought that was impressive. And that's going to cause the Clippers to play a lot of ISO ball. But one thing I thought the Clippers did well, and it was an adjustment, was they attacked the weaker defenders more. Cam Thomas and Joe Harris were two of the weak links for Brooklyn, and the Clippers went at them a good amount. And I thought Paul George and Kawhi did a good job of scoring on them. There was one time where Paul George got by Joe Harris in the first quarter, right to the basket all the way. And when I see Paul George get clean blow-bys, or even Kawhi get clean blow-bys, it puts a huge smile on my face because we all know that that's a weakness for the Clippers, and it starts from those two guys not getting to the basket enough. But the Brooklyn Nets were actually the ones that threw the first punches in this one. They were hitting every single three you could imagine. Royce O'Neal hit 5 threes in the first half. And I have to say, I think I'll talk about it more in the second segment because it's more of a negative. But the Clippers allow certain guys to get way too hot, and it doesn't seem like they have any pride in saying, this guy should not be scoring anymore. Now, Royce O'Neal, that actually happened to him in the second half. He didn't score anymore. So they did in that sense, but I want to see it more with stars as well. Although there is a defense to that, saying that sometimes it's better for one star to just cook and other players not to get involved. And you could say that that was kind of the case in this game, but Edmund Sumner had 23 points. He was a pretty underrated part of the Nets attack in this one. But funny enough, the Clippers had a different substitution pattern in this game, and I think that's something that's important to take to see if it's going to be a regular occurrence. But Kawhi and Paul George weren't staggered in this game. That's a big takeaway from it as well. Paul George and Kawhi were not staggered in this game. They came out with about 3 minutes left in the first, and the Clippers went with the 3-guard set again, with Ivica Zubac and Nico Batum out there alongside Reggie, Kennard, and Norm. And I think Ty's rationale here was to get Luke Kennard back on the court. You know, he didn't play in the last game against New York. You don't want to kill his confidence entirely, and he wanted to give Kawhi and Paul George less minutes. He said that. But he says the decisions are tough because I'm entering playoff mode right now. And the fact of the matter is, Robert Covington did not play again tonight. Second straight game, he got a DNP. And I said that I hope it's not, I said it after the Bucks episode, that I'm hoping that Robert Covington not playing in the second half is foreshadowing of him potentially sitting out entire games because Ty Lue doesn't trust him to play. And that's happening right now. And that was concerning. But funny enough, the Clippers actually did well with the 3-guard set in this game. And I think that's because, at least in the first half, they came in down 7, the lineup. And by the time Luke Kennard came out of the game in the second quarter, Clippers were up 36-33. And I think a couple of reasons. I thought Zubac totally outplayed Shadon Sharp. What's his name? Day'Ron Sharp. Yes, I get it confused with the one in Portland. But Day'Ron Sharp, I thought Zoo was outplaying him in the second unit. He missed 2 bunnies in the beginning of the game, Zubac, and I like how he gave him the ball there on a switch. But in the second quarter, had a putback, had a jump hook on a switch, got to the line 4 times, made 3 free throws, got a lot of rebounds, starting to play really good defense. So Zoo was just doing his thing. And I think Norman Powell, just completely was the reason why in the non-Cam Thomas minutes, that small guard line, the 3-guard lineup for the Clippers was working because he was getting to the basket, doing his Norman Powell thing, instant buckets. And Reggie Jackson in the first half, I actually thought was good. Hit 2 shots, got a strip. And even though Luke Kennard was 1 for 5, I was happy to see him make a 3, even though he missed 2 wide open threes in the right corner right after. Just seeing one fall is a good sign, hopefully a sign of things to come. But he ended up 1 for 6 in the game. As I said, a game of runs, though. Cam Thomas, amazing offensively, was really keeping the Nets in it, and they closed the first half well. And I thought the Clippers' communication on defense was pretty poor. Brian Shaw told Jamie Maggio at halftime that the Clippers were switching everything, but they weren't, or not switching everything. They were switching everything when Zoo was out of the game, but they weren't sharp on their communication on the switches. There were a couple of times where they were a little slow to switch, not communicating on switching off the ball, and in transition. There were times where the Clippers were back and still not communicating, and that extended in the whole game, especially the third quarter, where after the Clippers went up by 11, and something I shouldn't fail to mention, Marcus Morris got ejected randomly in the end of the second quarter. And it was weird because I don't think he had a technical before. He got 2 technicals right away, was ejected before halftime, and then Reggie Jackson started the third quarter, not Nico Batum. And the Clippers actually threw the first punch in the third quarter, went up by 11, Paul George and Kawhi were starting to work. Clips were starting to get stops. You felt as though the law of averages was going to finally start to kick in because Brooklyn was shooting so well from three. But the Nets made another run again. After going down 11 and calling a timeout, Cam Thomas just went ballistic, absolutely ballistic, hitting everything. And the crowd was getting going. And, I thought the Clippers ended the quarter well. Paul George had, I think, 11 points in the third quarter. Kawhi had 6. And one problem I did have was that Kawhi went around about 4 minutes without taking a shot in that third quarter stretch. And the Clippers kept up with the substitution strategy. 3-guard set with Zoo and Nico with the 3-minute mark of the third at the 3-minute mark of the third quarter and stretching into the beginning of the fourth quarter. They put Kawhi back in it with like 9.5 minutes to go in the fourth, and then Paul George shortly after a timeout. But the Clippers outscored the Nets 36-35 in the third. They tied 26-26 in the second and won 29-27 in the first. So if you do that math, the Clippers were up 91-88 going into the fourth. I thought they did a decent job closing the quarter, but allowing 35 points in the third, mainly because they kept putting the Nets on the line and, again, just didn't really make... actually, you know what? 35 points in the third, I can't complain about their offense there. I'd say I had some complaints about their offense in the first quarter, but the third was good. It was the lack of defense and mental mistakes that I'm going to talk about in the next segment. But ultimately, the fourth quarter was just chaotic. Clippers threw the first punch. Norman Powell was doing his thing. Terrence Mann was back in the game, had a nice floater to put the Clippers up 99-93. I thought Terrence did a great job, by the way, overall, defending, getting in the basket, you name it. Clippers went up 99-93. And I'm thinking to myself here, okay, Kawhi and Paul are going to come in soon. Let's take it home and just extend it to double digits and finish these guys off. And that's because Cam Thomas was out of the game, that the Clippers were having success. He comes right back in the game. Clippers, after being up 99-93 with him in the game, the Nets go on a 14-0 run and lead 107-99. And I think it was because the Clippers missed a couple of gimmies. 2 by Kawhi, took Zoo out of the game, so Cam Thomas was getting to the rim, making a bunch of tough shots. And Claxton, Paul George came in, and Nick Claxton blocked Paul George twice on the same possession. Kawhi missed his first 3 shots of the fourth quarter, and Paul George missed a floater, and the Clips' transition defense was poor. We went down by 8, called a timeout, and then Ty Lue went with a new lineup, and it was a pretty shocking decision. Kawhi, Paul George, Norman Powell, Zoo, and Reggie. No Terrence Mann. No Nico Batum, seniors ejected, and we responded with a 9-0 run. Started with a Kawhi mid-range. Then Reggie hit a 3 in transition after we finally got a stop. And then I'm pretty sure Kawhi got to the foul line. Zoo had a jump hook. And the crazy part is the Nets still weren't done after we made that little run. Cam Thomas responded with a couple of buckets, put them up 113-109, and I was scared that maybe Cam Thomas, it would just be his night. But then the Clippers responded again with a 9-0 run. Paul George had a short jumper, and I thought Ty Lue was actually calling a lot of plays in this game in terms of being a little hands-on, like a college game. The last couple of games I've really noticed Ty Lue's really calling out most of our plays from the sideline. And Kawhi Leonard started to hit some shots, including the huge one after Joe Harris passed up an open mid-range, and he was 2 for 2 before that, so I'm shocked he passed it up. Turned the ball over. Kawhi Leonard hit a 3, and then right after that, on the next possession, Reggie Jackson took a charge. Great defensive play by Reggie Jackson late. Kawhi Leonard gets the ball on the other end, gets loaded up on. I saw Ty Lue said Zoo flash middle. Zoo flashes. Kawhi makes a beautiful bullet pass. Zoo dunks. And then shortly after, Nico Batum got an and one that put the Clips up 121-116 with 57 seconds left. And the Clippers survive after being down 8 points in the fourth, win it 124-116 in Brooklyn. But coming up, going to talk about why it was so problematic, what the Clippers did wrong, and things to be a little bit concerned about. Going to be talking about that coming up. Prize Picks is the place to be to make daily fantasy entries. And how it works is you just pick 2 to 6 players and predict if they will score more or less than the Prize Picks projections. It's not versus anyone. It's just you and the projections available. And on Tuesday, I am going for LeBron James is over on the points. Over 32.5. I think he's going to target the scoring record. I think he wants to get it over with. Paolo Banchero playing against the New York Knicks. I am also taking the over there. And where am I doing that? Doing that on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best fantasy app out there, and entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Just download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. The NBA trade deadline is approaching, and Locked On has you covered. Thursday, February 9th, tune into Locked On NBA on YouTube at 2 Eastern Time, 11 Pacific Time, to hear reaction from the trades that will change the rest of the NBA season, who becomes contenders, and who is taking for a better future. Subscribe to Locked On NBA on YouTube, and don't miss a deal. All right, talking about the Clippers in this one, another game in which they made me nervous, too nervous. And the New York Knicks, okay, they're a playoff team. They have a similar record to the Clippers. I get it. But the Nets without Kyrie Irving, who was just traded, and Kevin Durant not playing, no Ben Simmons, the Clippers should be handling teams like this. And yeah, you can say, well, Cam Thomas had the game of his life and all that. To me, these things are preventable. You have to have more killer instinct to me if you're the Clippers. I think that this team truly lacks a little bit of that killer instinct. And I think it does stretch from not having a vocal leader to some degree as well. We do miss that Patrick Beverley, even Rondo in that second half of the season in 2021, that vocal guy. I think Kawhi Leonard is a lead by example leader, but I think that there are times where we need someone to just grab everybody by the bootstraps and say, yo, let's lock in. Let's put together one great quarter. I think that's the problem with the Clippers is they have a lack of focus and lack of attention to detail through 4 quarters. It seems very hard for this team to have statement games unless they're just firing on all cylinders offensively, like against San Antonio like a week or two ago, the 138-100 game. They need to be able to dominate teams even when their threes aren't going crazy. And I think that comes with an attention to detail, an increased effort, and not making boneheaded decisions. For example, in the first quarter, I thought our communication was a little bit off, but I think mostly the reason why we didn't start out great was because we were missing easy shots. Like Terrence Mann missed a wide open 3, Paul George missed some good looks, Kawhi Leonard missed a wide open right corner jumper, Zubats missed 2 layups basically. Like the Clippers were just cold, and the Nets threw the first punch in terms of scoring. And what's funny is it's gotten better the last couple of games. Like, we were the better team in the first quarter against Milwaukee. We were the better team in the first quarter against New York. But I did talk about previously that the Clippers seem to just start making shots later than other teams and dig themselves into a hole. And that almost happened in this one. But thankfully, Norman Powell and Reggie Jackson had a good game. I shouldn't say thankfully with Norman Powell because that's just 14 points for Norm on efficient shooting is just par for the course at this point with him. He's just been on an absolute tear. And I'm going to give him more of his flowers as the episode continues and I read the stats and everything. But when talking about the lack of killer instinct to me for the Clippers, it's those, that attention to detail, those missed communications. Look, if the Clippers are going to want to embrace the switch everything style, and that's switching everything one-on-one defense, then those players, Paul George, Nico Batum, Terrence Mann, Kawhi Leonard, Marcus, Norman, they need to take the challenge defensively. And I'm looking at Kawhi Leonard and Paul George first because they're the ones that everyone touts as these incredible two-way players. We need to start talking about them for what they're actually doing and not what they can do. Because, of course, Paul George is a very good defender. Of course, Kawhi Leonard, albeit it's not at that 2021 version yet, is a good defender, is still a plus defender. But right now, outside of a couple of steals per game, I'm not saying good defense Kawhi that much. I'm not saying bad defense Kawhi that much, but I think there are times where Kawhi has over-helped too much this season, like literally on defense, over-helping. But I also think at times he may not trust whoever's guarding the ball because Ty Lue has played lineups with, below average defenders at times. However, I still think Kawhi has over-helped and left shooters open. And in this game, a couple of times he left Royce O'Neal open, and I wasn't a fan of it. But Kawhi is not just, the only person. Everyone has moments where Terrence Mann, I'd say, has the least of these moments, and Nico Batum right after him. Moments where it's like the second effort on a possession is like there's a scramble and people are just ball watching. Too many guys are taking possessions off on the Clippers, and these possessions add up. I get it. Okay, you leave a guy that on the scouting report it says he's not a good shooter, you leave him open for three. And then the next time, you maybe take a step closer to him and get a hand closer, and he misses. Those little possessions, those kind of add up. Those add up in a game. And when the Clippers in the third quarter are making the most boneheaded decisions, like 2 lane violations on the same free throw with Claxton, that's inexcusable. No matter how much of a believable hesitation he has in his free throw attempt. Inexcusable. And then Paul George, we're over the limit. That's the reason the Nets really got back in the game and made that run in the third quarter when we were up by 11, is we kept putting them at the line. We were over the limit with 7 minutes to go in the third. And Paul George is 94 feet away from the basket, reaching and slapping Nick Claxton. I mean, Paul George is a future Hall of Famer. He should, at this point, know much better than to make decisions like that. And those are the kind of decisions that, to me, make the Clippers a fairly low IQ team. And I think Reggie Jackson, despite the fact that it was a big-time performance by him in the fourth quarter, made a big corner three, took that charge I referenced in the first segment, he closed the game well. But in the third quarter, he was abysmal. I actually counted 13 points that were scored on Reggie Jackson. Either he was switched on to somebody that scored on him, he was blown by when someone scored, and there was one time where he fouled. The avalanche started when he fouled Cam Thomas on a 3-point attempt when the Clips were up by 11, coming off of a timeout. And then there was a possession late in the quarter where he was guarding TJ Warren, but totally ball watching, and TJ Warren caught the ball into the basket. Reggie fell asleep, and he put it in. So, very tough, very tough. I was not happy with it, quite frankly, but that's who Reggie is. And when Ty Lue leaves him out there the entire third quarter, he's putting him in a position to not succeed. As far as the fourth quarter, why it got ugly, I think Cam Thomas was just playing really well. And I think the Clippers just missed gimmies. Kawhi literally missed a point-blank layup, and Cam Thomas got a dunk on the other way. That's just NBA basketball. You miss layups, you're probably going to pay for it on the other end. Thankfully, the Clippers got it going, though. They got it going, and I thought that, they executed better at the end of the game, which is a plus. Absolute plus. I just think Reggie Jackson still shouldn't be playing. I know that's so harsh after a game that he had. But I have to stick with this because it's truly what I believe. But first, let me tell you a little something about Built Bar. If you want a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try it. We just got through the holidays, and my goal this year is to eat a little healthier, get some more gains in, some protein. And the thing about Built Bar, even though they taste like chewy, chocolatey candy bars, because they're 100% real chocolate, they also are very healthy. And they come in unbelievable flavors like peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, and churro. I'm not sure how Built does it, but the bars taste like a candy bar with a really, really nice chewy interior. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't even need to wait around for a box by ordering it on Built.com. You can still do that, but you can also go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club to get a big box. So make sure you go pick up a 4-bar box at Walmart of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. And if you're close to a Sam's Club, pick up a 13-bar box with brownie batter or churro. You can thank me later. All right, let's take a look at the stat lines. The Clippers beat the Nets 124-116. They finished 4-2 on the road trip, and I'll take that all day. 31-26 is their record on the season. They're 17-15 away from home, which is one of the best records on the road in the Western Conference. The Brooklyn Nets are 32-21. And I think when I look at the team stats in this one, what sticks out to me, the field goal percentage is pretty identical both ways. Nets shot 49%, Clips shot 48%. Nets shot 51.6% from three, Clippers shot 40% from three, and only shot 30 attempts from three in this game, which is not a bad number. I like it. Usually the Clippers shoot more. Free throws. Clippers, for the second straight game, shot more free throws than their opponent, which I love to hear. 30 free throw attempts for the Clips, 22 for the Nets, 80% from the line for us, 82% for them. And my favorite stat of them all, and the reason why the Clippers got 8 more shot attempts overall than Brooklyn, another game with single-digit turnovers for us. 9 turnovers for the Clippers, 16 for the Nets, 25 points off those turnovers for us. So I think that's the difference in the game mainly. And, of course, we're just a better team. But let's look at the stat lines. Nick Claxton had 15 points and 16 rebounds to go along with 2 steals and 3 blocks for them. Cam Thomas, 47 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists. At some point, you need to have a little bit more pride, in my opinion, to be like, look, this guy is not going to get an easy shot for the rest of the game. We're not switching certain guys onto him. We are going to double team him and make somebody else beat us. And I think at times, Paul George and Kawhi throughout games, they need to take a little bit more challenge on defense. I know Ty Lue makes that call a lot, but as superstar players, you need to tell Ty Lue the same way it happened in Game 6 and 7 against the Mavericks in 2021, the same way Kawhi did it against Giannis in the conference finals, according to Phil Handy, where he just said, let me guard him. Paul George needs to do the same thing. And I thought Paul George's defense in the second half, his effort was not as good. First half, I thought he was moving his feet well. He was poking the ball away a couple of times from guys. I thought he was playing good one-on-one defense. Second half, lazy, getting blown by, reaching, lack of attention to detail, miscommunications on the break. And a couple of times, the Clippers have numbers back in transition, but they're not picking up. They're not even picking up the ball. There were a lot of uncontested dunks for the Nets in this one. Edmund Sumner just running to the basket. Nick Claxton went coast to coast like he was Charles Barkley at one point of this game. That's inexcusable. Too many possessions that they're just taking off, letting guys. There was one possession where Nico let Nick Claxton walk by him in the key. I think he expected Zoo to help out, but it was a wide open dunk. Nico let him by him too close to the basket. And Nico, I don't want to give him a hard time because he always plays great. Or should I say he always has pretty good, he always has pretty great effort. So I'm not going to really criticize Nico. But let's look at the stat lines besides that. Yeah, Cam Thomas, 47 points on 15 for 29 shooting. For the Clips, we only played a 9-man rotation. And those guys off the bench were Luke Kennard, Nico Batum, Norman Powell, and Reggie. Luke Kennard only played 15 minutes, was 1 for 6, 3 points. I still want to see him continue to play, continue to get minutes. Got to get his confidence back somehow. Reggie Jackson, 12 points, was plus 27, which is crazy. I don't think, the thing is, you got to contextualize that. He played the whole third quarter, so he was plus 1, but he was a huge reason why the Clippers, surrendered their 11-point lead. And I don't think he was that big a part of them getting the lead, except for one nice kick out to Paul George. Reggie Jackson had 12 points on an efficient 5 for 10 shooting and 2 for 4 from 3 in 27 minutes. Norman Powell had 14 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists on also an efficient 5 for 10 from the field. 1 for 4 from 3, though, but 3 for 3 from the line in 30 minutes. We'll take a 50% night for Norman Powell all day long. Nico Batum doing a little bit of everything. 9 points, 11 rebounds. 3 for 8 from the field. Yes, he was 1 for 4 from 3, but his defense is invaluable. He had a nice block on Cam Thomas. I think it was Cam Thomas. I can't remember who it was. Actually, no, it wasn't Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas ended up scoring on the rebound off of it. But Nico Batum doing his thing. Where we'd be without him, I just don't know. And then the starters. Terrence Mann played 25 minutes. Do I agree that he with him not closing the game? No, but I can't complain because he was taken out and Reggie did the business. He closed. Terrence Mann, though, very solid game for him on both ends for me. 12 points and 9 rebounds. Did a great job on the glass. 3 blocks when guys tried to try him one-on-one. 5 for 9 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3. He's been more aggressive offensively recently. Marcus Morris, only 2 points in 17 minutes of play before the ejection. Zubats, my player of the game. Good defense, rebounded, was aggressive. He only missed 1 shot after the 2 layups he missed early. 19 points, 12 rebounds, 3 steals, did not turn the ball over once, also had a block, and was a team high plus 27 alongside Reggie. He was absolutely phenomenal for me. And then the stars. Kawhi Leonard, 24 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. Solid game from him. But there was a stretch in the third quarter, as I said, where he went 4 minutes without shooting. And he finished with 17 shot attempts. And in my opinion, that's not enough. Kawhi Leonard needs to shoot 20-plus times a night. I know Paul George, for the second straight game, it was kind of his night. But I think we balance it out a lot. I think a lot of guys get shots. And I think that Kawhi Leonard still needs to be the number one go-to option. They both played 34 minutes, not staggered as I mentioned earlier. So Ty Lue's goal was to play them less. I think that's a better minute count for them to be at. I still think, though, in the playoffs, they should stagger, so I think they should start practicing for that now. But Robert Covington should be playing. Kawhi Leonard, 24 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists on 8 for 17 shooting, 3 for 4 from deep, so you'll love to see that. 5 for 6 from the line. Paul George, another really solid game from him. 29 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. I want him to be better defensively, though, throughout 4 quarters. But 10 for 20 from the field, 3 for 7 from deep, and 6 for 7 from the line. A very efficient game for Paul George, and the boys are coming home. 31-26 is the record. 8 out of the last 9 games with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have been won by the Clippers. You got to love that. They're playing their best basketball of the season. You got to be excited about that. And the next game is going to be a doozy. Probably Kyrie Irving's debut with the Dallas Mavericks. I will be in attendance. I cannot wait. We still don't know if Luka Doncic is going to play, but hey, we'll be there. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Make sure to subscribe to Dime Dropper on YouTube and subscribe to Locked On Clippers on YouTube and answer today's pinned question if you think that the 3-guard lineup that Ty Lue used in this game is going to be used against Dallas and going forward, or is he just testing different things out? Thanks for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. Now make your second listen game-to-game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game-to-Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. The age-old proverb continues, Go Clippers!